Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast here at Timberlake Christian Church. We're so glad you are with us. Whether you're listening to this on the go or you are watching this, we are so happy you are here. In the studio, we've got Brian Sevitz to my right, and we have Mr. Levi Black on my left, and I am Mr. Daniel, and we're so happy that you're with us. I want my children to call people Mr. and Mrs., and it's not really taken. I don't know.
Is it the first? Do you prefer the first name or the last name? Mr. Daniel or Mr. Garinger?
Daniel, yeah. Mr. Garinger is my father. It's my father. Anyway, we're so glad that you are with us here today. We missed last week. We had some stuff going on, some people gone, and so we are back in action, and we're glad you're here for it. We've got, as usual, the recap of last Sunday. We've got the top 3 things that you need to know about heading into this week, and then a ministry spotlight. But before we get to any of that, we have to give you the sponsor of the week. And Levi has the sponsor of the week. Levi.
All right, what I have here is a tent.
Ooh.
This actually isn't one of the tents we use.
Okay.
But it represents the tents we used at NYR just a week and a half ago.
Yes.
Out in Colorado. So this is where we spent quite a bit of our time for over a week out in the mountains in Colorado. So they were kind enough to sponsor this video.
We should have got them to sponsor the whole trip. Would have been better.
I'll spring for that next year.
Next time. All right, well, let's recap Sunday, and let's talk about what happened on Sunday. You were back?
Yes.
You were back. Mm-hmm. And were you guys present, or were you still recovering from the trip before?
I was present, I think.
Present?
I think so. I mean, maybe I wasn't 100%, but I was present.
Yeah. Same way. I had that mouth surgery, and it was on Tuesday, so I was like, I'll be completely over that by Sunday.
All right, hold on, pause. Because some people have no idea what you're talking about, and they hear the word surgery, and they're like, what's going on? So give us a little snippet. Are you okay? What's going on?
I'm fine.
What are your long-term complications that we've got now?
Well, my smile might be. Every time I smile, I now feel the stitches, that area pulling. So I'm like, I hope my smile wasn't permanently altered.
I hate any oral problems, pain and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, keep going. So
anyway, I have a few stitches up here. Mm-hmm. I had a non-cancerous keratosis. I think I said that right.
It's when carrots get lodged up in your jaw because you ate too many and you get keratosis up there. That's what...
I don't really know what causes it. Yeah. I think he did say something about what can cause it, or I read online, Yeah. But they are cysts that grow on your gums, basically, and they can just cause problems because they keep getting bigger and affect the bone and all that. So I had to have that cut out. Actually, it was a lot wider incision. I figured it would be this tiny thing you barely notice. It was a large area that they opened up.
But you're fine. Yeah. You were able to sing on Sunday, and that was good.
It was mainly for Jess's birthday pictures. If you looked at our Facebook post,
it was a little sideways.
Yeah. Well, I smiled, and it's Preston was like, "You look like you had a stroke."
I know. That's what. That's what I posted on there. When you came into the office, that's why I thought your side was a smile sign. Well, this past Sunday, we finished our section in the spiritual gifts conversation that we had. You had Sunday school?
Yes.
And what are you guys in? I haven't asked you.
Well, we kind of started a new series. I'm not we're supposed to have a whole new curriculum, but we haven't gotten that yet.
So you're in between.
Yeah, kind of. I just went ahead and jumped in because we weren't using this curriculum last year, so I just used one of August's lessons from last year. But we started a series called Restart, and it's talking about how God gives us a restart. And it's kind of themed on video games, about how it would be really nice if life was a lot like a video game where you go along and then you mess up or you fail a level, you just restart and start over again. And then you have that knowledge of how you can do better the next time. And then it talks about how God kind of gives us that restart of we've gone through lives, we failed, and then God has given us a restart, and now we've lived our life so that we can now go through it in a new light, in a new frame of mind, and hopefully do better.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's great. We had the saxophone on Sunday. That's always a fun addition, and the music sounded great. Do you want to say anything about the music?
He did a great job. Everyone did.
Yeah.
But it does add just a different flavor having a little saxophone. And JT is good about just throwing in. He doesn't try to play all the time. He just throws in little stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So
if you missed anything on Sunday, go to tlcc.church and you can catch up there, or on Facebook or on YouTube, and you can catch up on the services. Next week, we are going to cover chapter 11 in 1 Corinthians, which was my mistake. And then the following week, we are done. We are finished. This has been the longest sermon series I've ever done since being at Timberlake. Yeah. This is the longest stretch that we've ever done in one book. And so we'll be done with that in 2 weeks. So we got chapter 11, then we're going to finish with the resurrection of Jesus in chapter 15. So anyway, catch up on that on Facebook, YouTube, or tlcc.church. All right, now we've got the top 3 of the week. Brian's got those for us. So these are the top 3 things you need to know to be prepared heading into this week, and things you need to know coming up. So take it away. All right.
So the first one is this Saturday is the second Saturday of the month. So all the guys are invited. We're just going to have it here at church this month. We can't top last month with Tony and Joel and all that.
Breakfast was so good. Were you even there?
No.
You didn't even go. It was so good.
Yeah.
I ate way too much food. Joel cooked up this sausage and peppers and potatoes, and it was so good. And then he had biscuits and gravy on top of that, and man, it was so good.
So,
but we're not gonna have that this time.
We'll have donuts from Bratcher's or wherever I decide to get them Saturday morning at 7:30.
Yeah, good.
And we'll have some fellowship time, a little devo, and it'll be good. So you're invited right here at church Saturday morning. Second, one of the top 3 is something that Daniel mentioned Sunday, and we've had several people fill it out now, and it's our spiritual gifts survey. So there are a lot of different spiritual gift surveys, and we looked at several online options for this series, something that we hoped we would stick with beyond just this sermon series. And this particular one, you fill it out and you'll get your top 3 areas of service that you might use for the kingdom. So things like showing mercy or exhortation or all those, there's what were they, 13?
Shepherding. Yeah, there's a bunch.
I'm not going to be able to remember them all now, but there are several areas. And then some of those are things you're going to already know. I already knew this about myself. But then we hope that it will reveal something about yourself as well. And then maybe that could be a conduit to you finding a new area of service, or maybe you're not plugged in, and that might help us determine what's an area that you could serve in. Again, a lot of these might be ways you could serve within the gathering on Sunday or whatever. A lot of them are just ways you can serve the kingdom every day. Into everyday life. So spiritual gift survey, we will put the link in the comments again for where you can do that.
And if I can say one thing about that, sometimes, when you get involved in serving in a certain spot, it's something that you can do, but not necessarily something that drives you, or that it's not about passion, but it's about your gifting and feeling like you are being used to the fullest. And sometimes doing a survey can help you have a different perspective of things that you might not have considered before, but it might be something new to consider. So and for some people, serving is a matter of service. It's a matter of giving, and that's good. And you're not always going to sometimes it feels like work, and it's not always going to be the most joyful thing in the world. But when you're in an area where you don't really feel like this is where God has suited you for, it can really be draining. But if you find a spot where it's like, this is how God has wired me, even when it's tough, it's still fulfilling. So that's another reason to take the survey and see what you get out of it.
So it's an online survey. We encourage you to take it, even if you feel like you've taken 10 of these things before. I probably have over the years. It does take a little time. There's 128, something like that, questions, but you only have to pick between 3 options of how it correlates with you. So it goes by pretty quickly. And we're offering the opportunity to come in and also meet with one of us, somebody in the office, if you're unclear about how that particular gifting could be used. Of course, the website gives you some description and some kind of coaching, you might say. But we would love it if some people take us up on the opportunity to come in and talk about how you might use that area of service.
Yeah. That's great.
The third of our TLCC top 3 is Serve Day signups. That's another thing that we will be sending out a link for. We're going to be doing signups on Sunday where we will give you like the complete list. But this is also like vacation season and stuff. Daniel's going to be gone Sunday. So you may be gone. We're going to post online a place where you can tell us if you prefer like an indoor project, an outdoor project, if you'd like to suggest your own project. So we'll be getting you more information about that, but we just wanted to say Serve Day is the last Sunday of this month, so it's right around the corner, and it's time to sign up. So we hope that now that morning we're going to be having the first service, but it's going to be abbreviated. And last year it was maybe 20 minutes long.
Yep.
So we will meet at 9. But it's not like a full-blown service. We have a couple songs, a little Devo, communion, and then we send you out. Or to do a project here. So we'll be publishing that full list, and we'll give you a chance to sign up on Sunday. But if you're gone, we still would like you to fill out the online form.
Yeah. All right, there you go. The top 3 men's second Saturday coming up this Saturday here at the church building. The spiritual gifts assessment. Check your email if you'd like to take that, and we'd love to follow up with you to see if we can help walk through that with you to give you some ideas of how to utilize what God has gifted you in His kingdom. And then finally, Serve Day is coming up, so look out on Sunday, also in your emails for opportunities to sign up, and we'd love for you to participate. Okay, for the spotlight of the week, Mr. Levi and Mr. Brian, see how I did the Mr. there? They went to NYR with a group of people from Timberlake Christian Church, some families, and they participated in what is called the New Year's Resolution. No, wait, NYR. The Next Year Repeat. What does NYR stand for?
No, it's Nationwide Youth Roundup.
So it's not NWR?
NYR.
WYR.
Nationwide Youth Roundup.
So where's Nationwide is one word. Okay.
Yeah.
I said...
Is nationwide a hyphenated word? No,
I think it's all one word.
It's just all one word.
Okay, Nationwide Youth Roundup. Okay, so if that's what it is, what does that mean? What is Nationwide Youth Roundup?
Well, first, I was going to say it should be called MYR because 80% of the people there are from Missouri.
Missouri.
I did not know that before I was there, and every church van and every bus is from Missouri, or it's a MOEX charter bus. But anyway, the Nationwide Youth Roundup, there's a lot of youth groups there, so I think that's why they call it Youth Roundup. But there's also a lot of families, which this year we did it kind of family style. And I wondered if we would be like the only ones. No, I'd still say the majority come with a youth group.
Yep.
But there were a lot of people there as families like we were, or to be honest, there were several retired couples there that maybe their kids grew up and no longer come, and they still want to come. Yeah, so they're riding their little golf carts around, and they're in their fancy RVs in the air conditioning.
Yeah, that's what you mean. So it's a week of camp in the mountains of Colorado, and that's put on by a group that has the land there. And what does a normal day look like?
I'll start with this. What's really cool about NYR is it's 40 acres, and they have a valley that you do all your sessions in, but everything's all camp mostly tents. They do allow. Whenever I went as a student, they didn't really have any RVs at all, but there were a lot of RVs this year. But they have tents all over everywhere, and you're actually sleeping like up on a mountainside. So your campsite is a leveled off spot on a hill that's going down, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But so a typical day, it's really cool up there in the mountains. It's very different than Missouri because you can have a day where you wake up. Like one of the days we woke up and it was like in the upper 40s. That's how cold it was. So in the morning it was in the upper 40s, and then it got up to about 90 degrees in the middle of the day, and then back down to like the 50s that evening. But you wake up, you have your breakfast at your camp. And so my parents went and they cooked the meals for all of us all week long. So we'd wake up, we'd eat at our camp, and then we'd go down to the valley for the main session. And then, so they have that, and then you go immediately, and they have a bunch of classes that are divided up by age. And now they have classes for every age. So even if you have one of your kids that's in preschool, all the way up to the high school, they have boys and girls separated for their classes. And then they also have adult classes now too. So they have it all separated out, being taught by different people, and it's really, really cool. And then you go back up to your camp, eat lunch, and then you have some free time in the afternoon, which they do sports tournaments throughout the week. So you constantly have stuff to do. And then in the evening, you go eat dinner, and as soon as you finish with dinner, you go to the main session in the evening.
Nice.
And it's a really cool experience.
Of course, I've seen photos and videos of NYR for years. I had never gone. My wife had gone, I think, 5 times before, so she knew more. Although it's grown a lot since she was there, so there were some different things as well. But I think NYR has the concert worship service portion of something that is top notch, like you would see in a concert hall or something, paired with the reflective solitude environment, if you want to take advantage of it, of something like camp. But one of the differences, even between, we were sitting around one day and talking about this, and you literally have no servers. So as far as unplugging, it's even better than camp, because you have to walk up the hill to get one bar and be able to do anything, which for me, that was really good.
Yeah.
And I know it is for the students there.
Yeah.
Even my boys, which we put boundaries on their screen time and all that stuff, even better than I do for myself. We have that for our kids, but even they, we didn't allow them to bring their tablets into the tent and use them, none of that stuff. So if you're weighing the pros and cons of going to different events, or me, I was talking about really myself participating in different things, NYR was very good for the unplugged aspect. And yet, a lot of times in that environment, the services will be kind of bare bones or something because you're camping or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was not. I mean, they have full blown, I can't even imagine the amount of investment in the production and things for this event, all in the outdoors. So it's kind of like a state fair kind of setup down in this valley.
So give me your best story that comes from this trip, because there's always good stories that come out. Maybe it was something silly, maybe it was something funny, maybe it was inspirational for you. Give us a story that comes to mind out of the trip NYR.
Ooh, a specific story.
Maybe something that happened to you, you witnessed, you heard, just,
I can say there are a lot of really impactful things. I'll mention a couple of things. One, going into this, I had the plan that every afternoon we're going to go off with our kids and do different hikes and all that stuff and kind of skip some of the programming. And my kids loved it enough, they didn't want to skip their classes and stuff, which then I'm feeling bad because I was I was planning for them just to, skip out. But I didn't know. I mean, to my own credit, I really didn't know what they would be missing. But it was high caliber stuff. The classes and everything were really good. And so much that they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave and have to miss out on that stuff. Second thing is, they had, I think, 130 baptisms during NYR. in the pond. And one night they were supposed to have this little worship service where you sing around the pond, and they barely got to sing because there was one after another baptism happening in the dark outside at like, what time was that? Like 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah, it was late.
I mean, they would barely start singing the verse of a song and there'd be like 2 more people in the water ready to be baptized. And I was like, this is just an experience I've never had anywhere else. I've been to a lot of Christian events. I've gone to all kinds of things growing up and never experienced something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good story.
Well, actually, mine was going to be pretty similar. So one thing about sleeping in a tent is there's not really any soundproofing.
No.
Which I'll share that because it was just a funny story. I'll share that after. But one of the things that was really cool is our group would usually go to bed a little bit earlier because we weren't like a youth group going. And so we'd go to bed, but you could still hear people being baptized, even though it was like all the way on the down part of the mountain, a ways away. And you just hear so many people cheering all the time, all day long, but even well into the night. And that was so cool. The sessions were really, really cool, really good, very transformational. But then to actually see that being put into practice with all these people giving their life to Christ and being baptized, and we actually got to see one of the girls that goes out to White Oak Camp. She got baptized while we were there. She was with Blue Ridge's group.
That's cool.
So it was cool to watch that, and then just see so many people get baptized. It's really cool to see how powerful that event is actually taking place, which this year was their record year. They had over 2,000 people out there.
Wow.
And there was no room for anybody else. It was so full.
You sit in which a couple of the nights, just because we only had a couple of little porta potties close to us and there was lines, so I would go down to the valley at night where they've got, tons of options and sometimes cleaner options down in the valley. So, but at night, when you look up at the mountainside from the valley, like once they've turned all the lights off down there, it is amazing. See all the little, because some people have like propane stoves. And we weren't allowed to have real fires this year because they're burn ban or whatever. But a lot of people had party lights like we did on their canopies or something. And I was like, this is really amazing. I mean, see all these people, and I'd say, the vast majority of them are camping up there. There's a lot of RVs, and like we had a couple from the church that went out, Rich and Shelley, and they had a pop-up camper and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can sleep other ways, but most people are camping, and they're all on this mountainside from like the top to the bottom. You saw lights and movement.
That's cool.
It's like, this is just almost surreal to think how many people are there in that compact little space.
Yeah. All right, I've got to know the story.
Okay.
What's the story?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
curious.
so you are in the mountains out in Colorado, so you have the possibility of seeing a bear.
Sure.
Some people really want to see a bear, like me, and other people really don't want to see a bear.
Yeah.
And some people are like, I'll see a bear as long as it's like, really far away. But anyway, somebody had said something about like there was a bear a ways away, didn't know if it would actually come over that way or not. But it was in the middle of the night, and I don't know if you can measure how quiet it gets at night there, but it is so quiet. And Laura wakes me up and she says, hey, I think there might be a bear out there somewhere. And because she actually heard it, like,
you're like, yes.
I was. So I started opening up the tent door, and I was going to step outside, and then I accidentally left the tent door open, and Laura's like, close it. I'm not going to get in and get him. Yeah. But anyway, so there was somebody, it was in the camp directly below us, so just a little bit down the hill. I thought it was up at our camp, but it wasn't. And I didn't get to see the bear, but I heard somebody that was trying to like shoo it away. But all they were doing was just sitting there like clapping really loudly, and then they were like growling at the bear. And it was so funny because I was telling the story the next morning, and Jack DeFreitas was like, man, if I was the bear, those would be fighting words. But it was so funny to hear in the middle of the night, like, everything is dead silent. You just hear this guy like low. I don't know if he was just not trying to wake people up or what, but he's just like, "Get Bear." That's how he was talking to it. I was like, "Oh man, it's so funny."
I thought you were going to say that you opened up the tent and you realized it was someone snoring and it wasn't a bear. But that's still pretty
We
good.
did hear.
You
some
could
people
hear
snoring.
that sometimes too. All I heard that night was the clapping, and I heard more, but that's what woke me up. And it was like you knew that something was going on, and then I kept hearing little rustling, and you kept thinking, I don't know, I probably was awake for like an hour after that, just because you think,
Something's
did
gonna
it come back? Are they? And I think it was just people moving around is what it was, because it woke up enough people that.
So if you had a takeaway of this is how I connected with God that week, because that's the point of a large point of going to a place that's isolated, and we were talking about this, about how, why is it that Missouri people go to Colorado? It's you spend all that time, spend all that money, and a lot of it is getting out of the norm, going to an isolated place to be with God. So if there was a way that you connected with God, what was that for you this week?
So for me, it was nice to be unplugged. It was really, really nice to not have any distractions, because like what Brian was saying, like even if you wanted to be on your phone, you can't, because there's no cell signal at all. But the theme that they had this week was even if, and they talked about essentially, even if whatever you go through, even if something comes up in your life that's huge, that may take you down, weigh you down, I'm still going to have the faith to follow through. And that really resonated with me the most. They talked about Daniel's story in the mornings and then the apostles' story in the evenings. And it really just kind of like struck a light in me of like, whenever I'm facing something difficult, it's not the end of the world. It's not, this is just the worst thing right now. It's facing it, even if it's so difficult, you're
There it is.
facing it with
Even if the light turns off.
even if the light turns off. No, but like facing it with a mindset of, even if this is going to be really difficult and I may have a really hard time and it may tear me down, I'm still going to praise God no matter what.
That's really good.
And it was actually really cool to see that played out at NYR. There was one morning, they have a generator that runs all of their sound equipment. And it went out right in the middle of a song in one of the morning sessions. And everybody in the valley just kept singing. And everybody up on stage, the drummer, the person on the keyboard, everybody just came to the front of the stage and they were just singing. And it was the coolest thing ever. They didn't skip a beat and everybody just kept worshiping.
That's cool.
So you knew that it wasn't just about the show. It wasn't a concert. It wasn't anything like that. It was genuine worship.
Even if the generator
went out, they kept praising God.
We were joking around. I think it was me and Walt. Like they staged all that. It fit in so well, which I really don't think they did, because
it's one of those things that you wouldn't want to.
One of the guys that's in charge always, driving around his golf cart looking frazzled. He was back there. He's very frazzled after that service. But I think I would echo everything he said. But something different that was good for me, along with being unplugged and not having any other distractions, was God saying, keep being intentional with the boys, because I got more time with my family that week than even going on vacation, really, because there's not many other things to do. And you do everything together, you eat every meal together, and it's not like I'm not intentional.
Yeah.
But
it's a good
there were things that we got to do and ways we got to interact that week that I'm like, I could come home on a normal day and forget what happened at work and be better, more present in those little things of daily life. It just takes a lot more intentionality when you've got all the distractions of every day in your house and all those things.
Well, I'm glad you guys got to go, and I'm glad it was a successful trip. And this year, luckily, no breakdowns or anything like that. They are back, so we're grateful to God for that. And if you have questions or you're curious about NYR, you can go to nyr.org and you can check it out, or you can ask Levi or Brian about their experience, and they'd be glad to share it with you. And we're grateful for you guys that you got to go. Let's close it out with a blessing of the week. And this blessing comes from Peter, the Apostle Peter. And I wanted to read a verse that he has there that kind of highlights what we've been talking about for our spiritual gifts. And he says this in 1 Peter 4, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another, as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks, speaks the oracles of God. Whoever serves, serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God might be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belongs the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen." And I was thinking one thing we didn't really touch on in those sermons that we did on spiritual gifts was the difference between natural ability and God's gifts that he gives to you. And I that conversation, I think, is a little misconstrued anyway, because if you have an ability, it's given to you by God. The difference is when the Holy Spirit empowers you, the things that you have, or you feel like this is just who I am, it's part of how I was made, becomes much more purposeful and intentional. And there's a great quote by the philosopher and theologian Thomas Aquinas. He says, "Since therefore grace does not destroy nature, it perfects it. Natural reason should minister to faith as the natural bent of the will ministers to charity." That phrase there, grace does not destroy nature, but it perfects it. And he's talking about our nature as human beings and how God saves us. But I thought that was a cool concept, that the gifts that I've been given, God uses them for his glory, and when that happens, he's perfecting them. And the more we can trust in him with what we've been given, the better it will be. So be encouraged by Peter when he says, whatever you have, use it for the glory of God, and it's going to be used in a way that could be more impactful and greater than you could do on your own. So there you go, with the blessing of the week. We love you all, and we hope to see you right here next week on the Ripple Effect Podcast.